Buonasera, 안녕하세요. Allora, oggi abbiamo come ospite la professoressa Antonetta Bruno dell'Università di Roma La Sapienza. Innanzitutto per me è un grandissimo onore averla qui perché è grazie a lei è avviata anche la mia carriera universitaria, che è stata la prima che mi ha dato la possibilità di, insegnare coreano a livello universitario, quindi ormai sono diversi anni fa, ma sono molto felice sono sempre grata a questo. Vi spiego brevemente. La professoressa Antonetta Bruno è una figura di grande rilievo nel panorama degli studi coreani in Italia e in Europa e nel mondo. È attualmente professoressa ordinaria di lingua, letteratura e civiltà coreana presso l'Università di Roma La Sapienza. Fino a poco fa era l'unica professoressa ordinaria, dove ha fondato personalmente e sviluppato uno dei più completi percorsi accademici in studi coreani. La sua carriera accademica nasce da un interesse profondo per gli aspetti antropologico-linguistici, in particolare dello sciamanesimo coreano, ambito in cui ha svolto ricerche sul campo in Corea del Sud per moltissimi anni. Ha conseguito il dottorato presso Leiden University con una tesi che poi è diventata il volume monografico dal titolo The Gate of Words, Language in the Ritual of Korean Shamans, che è un volume che costituisce una pietra miliare negli studi sociolinguistici del rituale sciamanico coreano. Il suo lavoro si distingue per interdisciplinarità, infatti spazia dalla linguistica alla religione, dal cinema coreano alle pratiche comunicative, fino allo studio del cibo nella cultura coreana. Oltre a numerose pubblicazioni accademiche, è autrice di testi didattici per l'insegnamento della lingua e della traduzione coreana, con un particolare focus sull'epistemologia della traduzione in contesto antropologico. E infatti anche personalmente ho avuto l'occasione di lavorare anche a un dizionario di lingua coreana. La professoressa a livello internazionale ha ricoperto la presidenza dell'Associazione of Korean Studies in Europe, ACSE, la più importante associazione accademica europea del settore, e ha svolto un ruolo di primo piano nel promuovere gli studi coreani nel continente. La carriera lunghissima, attualmente dirige il Centro di Ricerche per gli Studi Coreani ed è membro del Collegio Docenti di Dottorato Civiltà, Cultura e Società dell'Asia e dell'Africa. Insomma, la sua autorevolezza è riconosciuta anche in campo editoriale, infatti siede nei comitati scientifici di prestigiose riviste internazionali, tra cui The Review of Korean Studies, Songyun Journal of East Asian Studies, Journal of Korean Religions e Bohum Yearbook of East Asian Studies. Veramente ancora da raccontare, ma mi fermo qui per non rubare troppo tempo. La professoressa oggi farà la sua lezione in inglese. Sarà un nuovo settore, un nuovo campo di ricerca per tutti noi, anche se avrete sentito parlare molto brevemente dello sciamanesimo, quindi siamo molto curiosi e la ringraziamo di nuovo con un grande applauso.
Grazie. Thank you for coming, even if it's a Friday afternoon. Parlo in inglese perché abbiamo ospiti molto importanti, professore che io stimo, ammiro tantissimo. So I will speak in English today, and also the PowerPoint is in English, so I think there's no problem for English. And so despite it's Friday afternoon, you are here, which is very encouraging for me. So my presentation today is about shamanism. I suppose that you all know what is shamanism. And when you approach a Korean culture, Korean society from historical or cultural point of view, or also from a literature point of view, but this maybe professor can confirm or not, it is very important to have a basic knowledge of shamanism in Korea, because it's not something pre-modern religious phenomenon, but it is also very still nowadays going on, and shamans and their rituals are very requested in Korean society. It is a contradiction, you might think, because as a religion, from historical religious point of view, it was very important in past, like in the Shilla period and etc. But still, as I said, nowadays, because we are facing more problematics related to money and ancestors who in Korean culture are not just the souls like in Christianism, let's say, that are dead, but they interact continually with living people. And this aspect is so important for Koreans, believers or not believers, but it means that not only in Korea, but also in Asia, in other parts of Asia, the relationship with death, with soul ancestors, is fundamental also to go on, let's say, in daily life. And I imagine that you have read many novels where still the protagonist talk with their ancestors. So the inner dialects or silence go on in this relationship with the ancestors, with the death and deceased people. So just very, very briefly, I would just like to introduce what is shamanism. And the definition of shamanism varies a lot by scholars. The scholars who are interested in the history of religion consider shamanism as a phenomenon, a religious phenomenon, and it's not called real religion. And from anthropological point of view, it is considered as a religious phenomenon. But if you look from a believer's point of view, from their perspective, and also the practitioners, the shamans, it can be defined as religion. Of course, you have differences between institutionalized religion like Christianism, Islam, Buddhism, and shamanism. Why? Because we don't have in the shamanism, let's say, holy scripture, a book which is transmitted by generation during the centuries, and you don't have main figures like Jesus Christ or Mahomet, prophets, or Buddha, let's say, and they are in shamanism, which is a polytheism. You have many divinities, and the shamans are intermediators between divinities and ancestors and living people. So, in the study of shamanism, the person who transformed very much the theoretical approach to this religious phenomenon is Mr. Eliade, who says that he has studied actually shamanism in all of the world and acknowledged that shamanism in various forms is still going on, let's say, is still practiced in many parts of the world. But there are some differences, let's say. He thinks that the origin of shamanism is in north part of Asia, like in Siberia, right? And that is the place where the shamanism has originated, and then it spread in all of the world, transforming depending also on geographical environment. In northern part of Siberia, because there are no mountains there, the shamans had more chance, let's say, to directly with the spirits because the sky and earth is very close. There's nothing between, like mountains and etc. But if you consider in the South Asia, like in Thailand, Vietnam, and in other places, you know that there's a lot of forest, right? And so in these cases, there's not the pure, true shamanism, but there's other kind of variation of shamanism. And the pantheon, pantheon is a spirit altar, let's say. And the paraphernalia is shamans' objects. And also shamans themselves behave and practice rituals which are quite different from Siberia area. Okay, so so he says that the origin of shamanism is in this part, that is true shamanism, and the shamans are charismatic. It means that they become shamans because they are called to be so by the spirits. Nature spirits can have a different origin, let's say, no? And but in the south, we have more shamans who are hereditary. So it means that they have no spiritual calling. They don't go through the procedures of divine illness, divine call, and etc. So there are the differences. Now, coming to Korea, before, in the pre-modern period, of course, there was not such a distinction, two distinctions, two dichotomy, that is hereditary shamans and charismatic shamans, okay? But from an academic point of view, after Ms. Eliade and this new series to divide the shamanism in the world into these two categories became predominant also in Korea. The first scholars during colonialism, like Akamatsu Jinjo and Akiba Takashi, import, let's say, this theoretical basis also to study Korean shamanism in Korean Peninsula. And after the colonial period, the Korean scholars, folklorists, and anthropologists were very interested on giving an identity of what was happening in Korea, what is there since centuries, let's say. And they have accepted this approach, let's say, theoretical approach, for several reasons. One, because in that period, it was very important for them to enter in a more, let's say, global theoretical disciplines which was going on, like history of religion and anthropology. So they tried to, let's say, incorporate also what is happening in Korea within this framework, a theoretical framework. And other point is that after colonialism, Korean scholars also tried to, let's say, to deline, to individuate own characteristics within this global theoretical frame, right? And for this reason, they start to consider shamanism differently from what they would say in the past, in a pre-modern period. And the acceptance of this dual classification was academically became so important that it changed also the own classification by shamans, by practitioners. So nowadays you have shamans who says, no, I belong to hereditary tradition, I belong to charismatic tradition, okay? So and among Korean scholars who try to give a kind of a line from a theoretical point of view, absolutely we have to mention Kim Tae-gon and just Kim Tae-gon, and I just forgot his name. I'm getting old. I forget all the names, and Chae Il-sung. Okay, so but these two scholars had a little bit different approach in reading what was happening in Korea, and I forgot to. How do you? This is had different approaches, and I'm a little bit. This is a little bit slow because I know that I asked to make a little bit more active the PowerPoint, but I'm not so good. So, and what I was saying is that. These two, this I already talked about, Chae Il-sung, and so these two scholars that I just mentioned, I would like to say a few words about them because, as I said, they had a little bit different approach in interpreting, in studying the shamanism in Korea Peninsula. So Chae Il-sung argued that in Korea, first we had priest-centered religious system in South. And then in the northern part, we had charismatic shamans tradition, and suggested that these two different categories of shamanism were already present in Korean Peninsula. But Kim Tae-gon says a little bit different thing. He says that he's closer to Michel Led's approach. He says that the northern shamanic lineage, that's Siberian, migrated toward the south, so also in the Korean Peninsula, and established Kangsimu is charismatic shamans in the northern part of Gyeonggi province. And his research suggests that the traditions represent regional variations of a single foundational tradition, that is Siberian shamanism. And in the southern part of the peninsula, the hereditary shamans is something that came later, originated later, and the differences between charismatic and the hereditary shamanism is due to the fact that in the southern part, the hereditary shamans were more institutionalized in the history. Now, later, I'll talk more about this, what it means. So, in other words, if we if we divide a Han River in northern and southern part, we have that in the southern part of Han River, we have the predominance of a hereditary system. In this system, to understand the difference between hereditary and the charismatic more in detail, in this system, the right to be practiced as a shaman is secured through marriage into a shamanic family. The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship become the primary mechanism of transmitting shamanist practice. So it's within the family system, linear transmission, I would say, right? This southern system developed as fundamentally more institutionalized and social in nature, and this can be traced in historical roots. The southern hereditary system emerged partly because shamanic families also served as musicians and performance for government office, creating a hereditary professional class that combined religious and artistic functions. It means that they were shamans, let's say, but they were also musicians, and later they also performed some sequences of the rituals. So in this way, the government in their tax system made these shamans pay the tax. So historically, from documents, we know more about this group of shamans, hereditary system, because in some way it's documented, okay? The role, like for instance, think about Hwarang, the Hwarang, you know, in a Silla period, but they had several mentions, let's say. And the Huarang is the term that is still now used to indicate, to call male shaman among hereditary shamans. So, but you know, as you nod your head, that Huarang, it was a special group, youth, aristocrats, trained for the war, but also they would perform, let's say, in the mountains, religious functions and artistic roles. Now, in the north part of the Han River, geographically and culturally, it is said that charismatic shamans are more widespread. So, in contrast, the in north part of the Hangang, we have this Gangshimu charismatic shamans and shamanism, which is characterized by practitioners receiving their abilities or their call directly from spirits through divine calling. So it's not that they can decide by themselves to become a shaman, what is said. And it is not that they can become shaman because they belong to a family of a shamanist tradition, let's say. And moreover, spiritual succession, establishing a godmother and goddaughter. Here we are not talking about a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, but a godmother and a goddaughter relationship between practitioners that transcends biological family ties. Third, the initiation into shamanic practice typically follows a period of spiritual illness or divine affliction, which is resolved only when the individual accepts their calling as a shaman. And you have a huge literature on shamans, charismatic shamans, telling about their affliction and the divine call and how many difficulties, affliction they had to go through in order to become a shaman. If they don't want to, they reject to become a shaman. More and more problems will happen in the family, and their relatives will be suffering as for such an affliction as well. So this is a traditional theoretical basis, okay? Now, what I'm saying in this presentation, in this article, which will be published next year, is that I challenge this binary classification based on fieldwork, on which is not only what I do, but also other scholars have done, and which are the examples or practical evidence for which we can say that this binary classification has to be reviewed, has to be more analyzed. Okay, I would just consider a few of aspects that are in this presentation. The recruitment patterns, what is that? How one becomes a shaman, okay? So if we look to the testimony and make an interview and etc., we'll hear a lot about so-called divine call. And you know that the divine call is a characteristic peculiarity among charismatic shamans, as I said. But in the fieldwork, in testimonies, in life stories, you understand, you discover that frequently it originates from one's own ancestors, who are subsequently venerated as deities on the shaman's personal altar. So in this sentence, we have two contradictions in some way. Divine call means that you have to be called by divine, and not because, and this spirit divine cannot be your ancestor, right? That's what we said. And then, but a second contradiction is that they do venerate deities who are their own ancestors in their personal shaman's altar, which is a practice among charismatic shamans. One shaman says, my grandmother came to me in dreams for 3 years before I accepted this path. So it's a grandmother. She showed me the ritual implements I would need and taught me songs I had never heard. When I finally built an altar and performed the rituals she requested, my illness disappeared. Now she is my chief deity guiding all my work, right? Now, I think in some way you have followed all this talk about previous president 이런 얘기도 해도 되나? 모르겠다. 하여튼 I mean, the previous president Yun and his wife, that they were very much involved with the shamanism. And in fact, the president Yun, during his campaign, he shows his hand where it's written in Chinese character Wang. And a lot of talk went on for more on his wife, that she has a strong connection with the shamanism. Now, in some interviews, she says, I know much more than a shaman because my relatives, among my relatives, they were shamans. In that case, you see that this relationship with own ancestors, grandmother, and etc., is there. It's not something just you find in written text. And in that case, the wife saying that was not saying I belong to a hereditary shaman's family, because she was saying, I know much more and I have a power to influence the campaign and everything else. So she was in some way missed charismatic shaman or health shaman. But anyway, it's something that still goes on. A very interesting research will be politic and the shamanism, actually. Then another characteristic in the requirement is divine illness. Experience is not universal among neophytes who are identified as spirit-possessed shamans. Some practitioners embark on the shamanic path after spiritual mother, diagnosis, or divine presence within them, without having experienced the traditional symptoms of divine affliction. What this means? It means that like a person who has no divine such a divine call has not experienced a divine illness, which is called in Korean 작은 죽음, small death, and the spiritual mother distinguish very well 미친 사람 and 미친 사람 is a person who is crazy for the behavior, and a person who has this divine illness. But in this sentence, it says that a person without experience, without having all these kind of things, just decide by herself or himself to go to a famous mudang or mansion and say that I would like to become a shaman. And the spiritual mother, if she sees that this person can become a shaman, then they agree to perform initiation ritual. In that case, this is another anomaly, let's say, that you find which contradict the traditional dichotomy. Again, there are documented cases of individuals with an hereditary shamanism who autonomously decide to pursue the path of shamanism through their own volition without experiencing either the traditional divine call or spirit illness, characteristic of shamanistic charismatic shamans. So, in number one, we saw a person who decides by own to become a charismatic shaman without going through the classic illness. In the second case, number two, we have hereditary shamanism, hereditary shaman who do not go through this spirit illness, but anyway decide to become a charismatic shaman. What does this mean? That he or she abandon the family lineage tradition and decide to become a charismatic with building a new kind of relationship, which is not familiar line, but spiritual line. When this is, such a case can happen. Because one of the reasons, most frequent reason is money. charismatic shamans make more money than hereditary shamans. So I have participated a very long initiation ritual for a person who had a family lineage, let's say, and he was very skillful in his way to conduct, to perform the ritual. But one day he decided, for economic reasons, that he would like to switch to charismatic shamanism. And so he asked this initiation ritual to a very known shaman. And the initiation ritual took really long time. And the shaman was saying, tell me, say what you see. Beat the drum as you feel, and etc. But he was beating and the drum in a Chuncheongdo style, where there's a hereditary shamanism, and not in Hwanghaedo style, where there's more charismatic shamans, let's say. And he couldn't see which divinity are coming to him. And we talk about what kind of a sensation, how the organs, eyes, ears, participate in this secret transformation, let's say. And he saw at the end the ritual failed, right? And but in many other cases, the ritual can be successful. Third, there are cases of hereditary shamans who experience a spirit possession despite coming from traditions supposedly characterized by its absence. So this is really another contradiction, let's say, no? The hereditary shamans are born in a family and is destined to become a shaman, but still the person had a divine illness, right? Now, so these are the, some examples, let's say, of contradictions. Now, that was about how they become shaman. And if you look at the performance characteristic, the dance, I don't know if you have seen video clips, whatever, how they dance. You will notice very stark differences on the way they perform the dance. Kangshinmu, the charismatic shamans, are characterized by jumping in both feet, right? They jump a lot, and their dance movement and style is very wide, frenetic, and etc. But Seismu, if you consider the Salpuri, for instance, in Jindo, it is very soft, harmonious, and there's rules to follow, like cross-stepping movements, moving with the feet slowly, making in the ground the circle, and all these kind of things. And so they are, from artistic point of view, very refined dances. But again, if you see many of them, you notice that also Kangshimu, their frenetic, wild dance, which is considered as movements, dance to entertain the divinities, but these movements are spontaneous because they are under the possession, they are under the ecstasy or state of altered state of consciousness. Actually, if you look carefully, all those steps follows a rule, a style. Right? It's not that they really, if you jump just randomly, you'll fall down. You start from here and you go there, etc. But it's not like that. The space occupancy, the time, everything says you that they learn. Okay, how to dance. It's not so spontaneous as the tradition wants to let us understand. And the trance or ecstasy or altered state of consciousness. Also in this case, when you look carefully, the ritual performance, both charismatic and hereditary have demonstrate varying degrees of spiritual embodiment. I like very much this word embodiment because we'll see later if we have a time that in shamanism, the learning procedure, the transmission of knowledge is not something just mental, the body, the memory, the organs all participate in this learning. And for instance, in trance, okay, you can say, okay, among charismatic shamans, when they deliver Kongsu, the oracle, they are talking in voice of, instead of divinities or ancestors. So we have a clear demonstration of altered state of consciousness. I would also challenge that definition. And but trance, among the hereditary shamans, it's not the shaman who deliver Kongsu, but it's among the audience, one person become possessed and deliver messages, not always verbal language, but also non-verbal languages. So in some way, what does this mean? It means that they have a similar consciousness of the universe, of the spirits, and etc. Then another characteristic that theoretically scholars use to distinguish this dichotomy is standing good and sitting good, okay? Standing good, it says by itself, it means that the shaman performs, I made a mistake, in standing position, right? Standing up. You see in Hwanghae rituals, most of the ritual sequences, which are the 12, they perform this standing up, dancing and the divination and oracle and etc. But Jaesokgwari, for instance, which is dedicated to Buddhists, the shamans sit down and song, the muga, the shaman's song in a Parigongju, in a funeral ritual for hours. Not nowadays, not so many hours, but anyway, the shaman has a very heavy wig on her head and a very heavy drum, and she beat the drums and sings a long song telling the Pari, the Princess Pari, who is abandoned during the ritual. And then sitting good, it is what you have mostly in Chungcheongdo, where the shaman sits and what does he or she does? Read sutra. So this is a sutra recitation. And but in that case also, in many cases, while reading sutra, the shaman experiences ancestral spiritual calling. And in that case, this shaman is moving in two ways. It means that participate in a master discipline lineage, which is a classic phenomenon you find in hereditary shamans, but also has some aspects, elements of divination, like giving a divination during the. Is it clear? I'm running too much. If you if something is not clear, or just raise your hand, okay? And so, what the shamans say about all this when you make a long interview, they say, and you say, yes, but in that area they do like that, in this other area they do like that. Okay, then they said, listen, the origin of gods is one. The origin of each mudang is different. Very wise sentence, right? And this means also that this saying captures the understanding that why individual shamans may receive their calling through different pathways, they ultimately serve the same divine entities and share fundamental spiritual concepts, right? Oh no. Okay. And okay, now this is the main topic of my presentation, just tell me when I have to. Script orality. Okay, the term is a combination of a script, and orality refers to a complex interrelationship between written and spoken elements in ritual traditions, right? Rather than positioning writing and speech as opposed modes of communication, script orality recognizes their fundamental interconnection and mutual influence. And both charismatic and hereditary shamanic systems incorporate various forms of textual elements through which different approaches to textual transmission and utilization. So within the binary classification I talked about, usually they say hereditary shamans are more focused on the script. Charismatic on orality, right? That's what usually it is said. And the shamans believe that too. But if we look at the linguistic architecture of a shamanic ritual, we have, I will just I'll go through very fast. Muga is the shamanic songs, and the Gongsu divine speech, and then we have a jam, which is divination. And I'll talk more about Gongsu, which is the main topic of my PhD dissertation, which was dedicated from a linguistic anthropologic perspective, shamanist languages and body behavior. So what I was wondering is, but what do they say? Is it so secret language? Is it that all what they say? It's a Muga, of course, there's a lot of translation, but the Gongsu and other things are not well researched, are not well. And how can I say that each Mudang has own linguistic repertoire? I mean, each shaman has own way to talk, to deliver the divine language. Is it something that we have a kind of a formulaic patterns among the shamans? Do they learn this? How do they learn? Reading books, texts, or recording as now happens, or going to the shaman's school, or they learn as in tradition from spiritual mothers, so orally, just attending for years and years, sometimes even 10 years, the richer and the learning slowly. So these were one of few questions that I asked, and then I was very interested on body language, on nonverbal languages. So they say such things, words that you hear, the voices, but what the body really says, because you know that you can be very polite, educated person, and you say such a thing, but your face expression, your body position, etc., contradicts this kind of what you are really saying. And so I was wondering, in the richer context, when it's really, so we are talking about specific domain, is it true that individual, spontaneous verbal and non-verbal languages are really separated from the richer context or not? Is there a framework, a common denominator among them, and etc.? Anyway, so I was very much concerned of Gongsu. So traditionally, it is described as orally transmitted spirits' words communicated through a shaman as a spoke mouth for divine entities. This conception is expressed by a scholar, Korean scholar, who says, quintessentially a set of powerful words known only to the shaman herself and pronounced only when she is possessed by the descendant spirit. The voice comes from shaman's body, but the words come from somewhere outside, from the spirits. Very, I would say, romantic, ideological definition of Gongsu. And but after recording more than 120 tapes and living with the shamans, understand that it's a little bit more complicated. So, for instance, a shaman with whom I stayed a very long period, and I would in that case I would record the gongsu in the ritual setting, and then in other day when she's not having the ritual with her spiritual children, we would ask questions, okay, and so she would teach us. How to deliver gongsu, okay? So here I have underlined formal-like expressions. And she first asked, what is the actions you have to do to the ritual, okay? So you ask facing the mountains, and you ask during the Chobujongori, why, so she instructs us how to behave to invite the spirits to come to participate in the ritual. Okay, because the shamanic ritual, you make a contract with the spirits in the meaning that you invite them to participate, to resolve together a problem, and to listen, let's say, what is the problem. And to do this, you would treat them very well. You will entertain them. And in this way, they would be satisfied, and they would. The contract is that they would accept to help, right? So, but in a certain moment, she says, "Hey, 오늘 다." Okay, this is in italic because this was, in her case, in this shaman, a kind of opening formula. In the moment that she says, I will now deliver a gongsu, so I switch my identity. She will start with these two words, and you understand that it is a gongsu. And she said, when the Changunim stepped forward, although it is said that heaven is high, below it there's a mountain Tesan. Although it is said that the mountains are high, deep in the night, and etc. So you have this poetic, more or less expressions, and this is memorized, and then, in order continuing the lesson, she says, when the Chesognim all descend, if they are students in university or something like that, because you give a gongsu, you deliver gongsu for each situation, and you have to do that. You have to say, the gods say that they will make a fine composition of each word, increase merit and virtue and official rank. That is, you have to do like this. Okay, so also gongsu, beyond the fact that it is spontaneous, there are many sentences which are learned. That's what I'm, so these examples, just two I'll just talk about today. So what do they mean? The above examples are significant for several reasons. First, they challenge the notion that gongsu represents pure divine inspiration without human mediation or learning. Even in contexts where spirit possession is emphasized, ritual speech follows certain established patterns that must be learned and internalized. They demonstrate that the relationship between scripture and orality in mode of performance, transmission, and composition is stronger and more complex than traditional classification suggests. 3, the sophisticated interplay between tradition and innovation in gongsu demonstrates the complex nature of Korean shamanic ritual language and underlines a simplistic distinction between supposedly spontaneous charismatic practices and the learned hereditary ones. Now, think about that. There is one sentence which took me years to understand and to interpret and etc. And this sentence says, and it's really it works like a formula. The charismatic shamans use a lot. 내가 도와주시마. You learn Korean. 내가 is a first person pronoun, humble, right? Informal. Dua ju shi ma. Ma, the verb sentence as well, is humble. So you say, okay, the personal pronoun and ma are it's not a mistake. But dua ju shi ma, what you have, she, the honorific suffix inside, dua ju shi ma. When I recorded this, I checked and checked again, and I asked, and they said, no, it must be a mistake. Maybe you misunderstood, and etc. But I noticed that it was frequent. And then one day I went to Buddha school, and they gave me a text of Kongsu where there was this sentence, "Nega dua jushima." Still, so using, let's say, more sociolinguistic theoretical approaches, you have, I interpret, analyze, there are the different speakers, okay? Addresser, I mean, nega dua jushima. Nega, ma, is the spirit and, who is talking. But in the same time, we have also the shaman who would use she toward the divinities. So you have, let's say, more than one entity in one sentence. I was wondering, is this peculiar, the peculiar to Korean shamanism? Is it only there that I can find such a kind of different participants in one sentence and switching their identities of demonstrate, which is possible to demonstrate from linguistic grammatical point of view. And it happened that I was working with other linguistic anthropologists, and one Carlos Seberi, who worked on about shaman's language in among the Northern Indians in the United States and in the Southern America, he noticed that among the Indian Americans, they would use the switching forms in the verb sentence. I mean, they will say, even if they are doing now, the richer, they're washing a corp or body. Even if they are doing now, they will not use the present tense, but they will use the past tense. And for all the actions that shaman performs on spot, on that time, will use anyway past. For other things, will use the present. So there's a kind of a contradiction, let's say, no? And so why this? Because that in his case, he explained that when you say that Richard performance is bringing the past into the present and recreate universal harmony and etc., that is a demonstration of this, okay? But Antonetta L, another scholar, worked on beating, the drum beating, and she noticed that in Southeastern Asia, there was a kind of switching in the way to beat the drum. And each way of beat the drum identify or suggest that who is the speaker, okay? But, and so we had a very enthusiastic conversation, I would say. And, but what I noticed is that in the case of, as I said, I am interested also in body language, because in many cases, if you have a chance to go and assist Richards, I would say that it's a very good psychotherapy, and you don't pay for that. I did 4 years, I cried a lot, and etc. You will notice that in a certain moment, the client, who usually in the beginning, because he's shy or because he's immersed in her own, problems, have a kind of a behavior which is very far. She doesn't participate in rituals. If you ask why, which is the reason you ask for this ritual, just like this, and etc. But in a certain moment of the ritual, when the shaman, in this case that I'm recalling, the shaman, there were 3 people, the client, the assistant, and the shaman. The shaman was possessed by the mother who is of the client, and she started to rub her belly. And belly really hurts. Immediately, the client understood, mother, and they embrace, they cry together. But before that, a moment, whatever the shaman was saying, the client couldn't understand. And they were very simple questions, like, 밥 먹었니? Have you had lunch? The client will look at the assistant and will answer looking at the assistant. And the assistant will say the same thing to the shaman. So what do we have? We have the speech directions, which are the different, But when it happens that the client understood it's the mother and understood that this gesture, rubbing the belly, was recalling a sad event that she had to face when the mother was alive. In other words, making short, the client made an abortion, okay? And the mother, she wanted to keep the child, let's say, and the mother made such a pressure that then the client did abortion. And so the mother would say, I shouldn't have convinced you, I should have been more careful and understand your position, but because you are not married and etc., please forgive me and understand me, and etc. And so, in this case, the ritual is successful because the client had a way to communicate and to resolve something that afflicted her for years. And through the shaman mother, she had a way, let's say, to make a peace with us, the soul of the mother. But this body direction was really very interesting for me, and how it switched. And so we talk about 30 minutes. So orality, okay, then it says, in old days there wasn't time to write. Even now, if you serve during a gut, you participate as helper. So what I'm going to say here is that if the neophyte assists for years, as I said, if it doesn't matter, it's a family line or spiritual line, they go to the ritual, they help and they watch and they learn by watching and listening. And the learning is not just something that in past you couldn't record. Now, maybe many of them just secretly they record with the telephone, let's say. But still, they also had to learn emotional things, like when doing ancestor cult, one shaman, now he's famous, he was at time only an assistant. He would go crying, repeating the stories he heard during the ancestral cult and how to cry. And in this case, he was doing this repetition or immersion in emotional domain while he was driving the car. Driving to home. So it is not something that you learn only on spot. You have to be able to incorporate embodied knowledge and memorization, okay? It is through the memory of seeing and hearing, of participation, observation, and of what remains in deposit in the body that illuminates us at certain moments and allows the neophyte to eventually conduct a ritual independently. So, the phase of incorporation of absorption that involves physical work on the eye side and the ear hearing, and how through these sensory organs one reaches a high level of one's own transformation. Now, if this seems difficult, think about when you learn how to cook. I see majority is girls. Not because cooking is just a mention of girls, but sorry for this. Anyway, whoever learns how to cook, and you want to learn how to cook the secret recipe of your grandmother, which belongs to original secret. Okay, lasagna, you have so many varieties, and each family will say, my lasagna is true, traditional. In Napoli, they do it such a way, Roma and all the blah, blah. But think about the way that you learn. You can nowadays go to the internet and look for the recipes, but that is not, even it's called, defined as a traditional Napoli lasagna. Your grandmother might say, no, it is not. I had also this. I fried this before this. And those are the secrets, no? And how do you learn those things? Staying beside, watching, right? And so you learn by seeing what she explains by ear. And then in some way, this is not really a good case, but you embody. Okay, but in the case of example I gave you before, the guy who was driving at home and was saying, in the ancestral ritual, you have to cry in this way, is what he saw, what he heard, and then he embodied because he has to learn how to reproduce emotionally with the body movement, crying, etc. So, in shamanistic language, they say the gate of ear, Kwimun, the gate of words, Malmun, and then we have Segimun, the gate of word. And so the gate of words is the title of my book. The incorporation of shamanic knowledge through physical organs, eye, ear, is articulated through specific conceptual terms like these words that I said. And then we have to add also the gate of munso, of writing in Korean, munso. So there are many gates, right? And you will be successful, you will be able to open the gate of war. If you open all these gates, it takes time. It takes time. What does it mean, a gate of word? It means you will become a real shaman, and you can go around in the world to perform the ritual, okay? And this is majimak, the last step. Now, what does it really mean, these things? One shaman says, for both the spirit-possessed and hereditary shamans, there's a time when the deity suddenly opens the ear gate. You listen for many years. You cannot write down. You can record, but every time anyway, something is different. And then in a certain moment, as that ear gate opens, it whooshes in. Previously, words from the spirit mother just passed by, but now they enter the ears clearly. Many shamans say, in a certain day, my mind became so clear, and the words would just come spontaneously. And I can hear the things that before I couldn't. So this kind of fascination, this kind of statements are the things that anthropologists like. This experience is described across the traditional boundaries. There are actually many such stories. So even spirit-possessed shamans say that one day they couldn't do it well, but suddenly grandfather taught me the deity, and suddenly we can perform shamanic songs well. And open the gates. The gate of ear concept bridge the supposed division between learning and revelation, suggesting that these are complementary rather than opposed modes of knowledge transmission, right? So this in some way is again what is focus of my presentation today. So also hereditary shamans, anyway, even they memorize so much, a certain moment, it has to be open, right? And then the gate of words, Malmun, refers specifically to acquisition of a spiritual power during the initiation ritual. And we saw the case that I told you, who failed because couldn't open the mouth, through which a neophyte becomes able to speak the words of the gods. And so But this is not all. Nowadays, that internet, handphone, and everything is a part of our daily lives. What is happening, right? Many new shamans, many neophytes, they secret record on their phone. They record, watch on YouTube, and it's already recorded a lot on blogs, right? So they don't need to go through traditional way to become a shaman, okay? Initially, when shamans descend, they say they see, they hear, right? The spirit mother, but from some day, looking at these existing shamans, their skill improved. They learn, but shamans no longer see more, no longer feel more. Teachers can neither see nor hear. What this means? They are better than other shamans who became shaman from learning in traditional way, right? But what is the difference? Their skill improve, and but do they have this spirit knowledge really deeply? They are seeing only the first. These shamans who record and watch YouTube and learn by shamans on blogs, they are seeing only the first stage of the 20 stages. They can't see the second stage deity. They can't see the third stage deity. They can't see the fourth dimensional things. Okay, so it is intellectual acquisition of the knowledge, but they don't feel, they don't see inside of them how the knowledge then is embodied in the person. Okay. So, but the thing is that shamans themselves, as I said, distinguish themselves. I'm hereditary, I'm charismatic. And they criticize a lot between them. If for the scholar, it's depends on the scholar, but if it is the scholar's approach is looking for origin, let's say, and which is more faithful, folklorist more. What do shamans think of themselves? It could be an interesting question. How do they differentiate in this binary category? So hereditary shamans claims to traditional authority. They say the burden and privilege of memorization. So they say it was done systematically. Spirit-possessed shamans are looked down upon because, but this is just a translation of interview, so sentence can be just suddenly, but literally, shaman, the teacher, Jinsure, who is a hereditary shaman, said on a broadcast, "We hereditary shamans have so many shamanic songs to memorize." But spirit-possessed shamans don't need to memorize all these songs. They just do it when possessed by shamans. That what she meant is, but if you think about it, the number of shamanic songs hereditary shamans need to memorize are really a lot, okay? You can say that, but that reflects a peculiar Korean characteristic, the desire for texts and books. Why is that strong? Because since the Joseon dynasty, even in Pansori, it is mentioned the importance of textual knowledge. That guy's knowledge of text is deep. They say if you sing very well Pansori and remember all the steps, that means knowing a lot, memorizing a lot, and doing a lot determine not just a person's intellectual ability, but also their social status. The person told me. And what is the social status? Yangban, aristocrats in the spiritual realm, do whatever the ghost tells them to. I mean, the hereditary shamans very often they say we belong to Yangban class. because young men are the scholars and they studied a lot, while the charismatic shamans just jump if the spirit says, and if a spirit wants to communicate something, they just speak. So they have no, let's say, continuous study behavior or background. And then says, have you heard of Mujin or Mujain, a person without talent? What it means is that the spirit-possessed shamans call ordinary people just like us, Muje or Mujain. That talent, that skill for shamans is the talent to hear the words of a spirit. So charismatic shamans in some way says that the hereditary shamans cannot hear the divine spirit's words. They are incapable, and so they are mujin. Shamans can receive a spirit possession. They can be possessed by souls, can be mounted, and first, second, third souls can enter me, and then send the souls back out again. This is the shaman's ability given by heaven, which hereditary shamans lack. Okay, and so. What scholars have emphasized as a distinction between traditions, divine calling versus inheritance, oral versus written, aesthetic versus artistic, reflects academic preoccupation rather than lived reality. Across regional traditions, both divine connection and proper ritual knowledge have always been valued, with most practitioners incorporating elements of both regardless of their classification. Korean shamanism represents a continuum of practice with regional variation rather than discrete types, calling for more sophisticated and analytical frameworks that capture the fluid, hybrid nature of these traditions. In this way, I finished my presentation, but if time is a little bit, I can comment some pictures that I... So in this ritual, as you see, is a charismatic shaman's ritual because the shaman is on top of a jakdu. And the jakdu, there's these two knives, then a bowl of water, and then a big jar behind. What does it represent? It represents the universe. So the shaman stands above the ocean, right? And the most powerful oracle that the shaman can deliver is when she's on top of the jakdu. Jakdu are very sharp knives, and they demonstrate this cutting a paper before to say that it's not a fake. It's and the people around holding the jakdu, usually they have a white paper in their mouth because to avoid the mouth pollution. And so there's assistance. This recall very much Siberian shamanism. They are the colorful rainbow. Yes, and this is a temple in the mountain. So in this center, when the shaman says we ride the spirits, we go on top of the spirits and we make our travel. And this is a typical image that you have when you read about the Siberian shamans recalling their ecstatic voyage. They will say, we travel around the universe. And in this case, it's interesting because there's a cow head. You can't see here, but anyway, this is a main shaman, and she's holding the paper money, and she has a turban in her head, and she's possessed by Changun, and then followed by assistant, and they ride top of a cow to travel. And then again, of course, as in Siberian, in the north of Siberia, the lake of mountains and trees facilitate communication with the other layer of universe, let's say. In the more you go down, you have symbolic items which facilitate the shamans to communicate with the spirits, with other. And one of this is a holy tree or mountain as well. And so all these colorful strips indicate that it is a sacred mountain, tree. And this is a male shaman. I know him. He and another shaman received initiation ritual when they were 8 years old by Kim Kum-hwa, the superstar who passed away. And so I know them since in the 80s, and he committed suicide. And everybody knew, so I'm not saying, he's homosexual. He was homosexual, and this is his spiritual son, let's say. And they perform this ritual where you see this is a knife. It's not ritual knife only, because ritual knives usually are not sharp, except chatu. In a certain sequence, they use a kitchen knife, so ordinarily utensil. And in this picture, you see that he will cut the hem strip textured, and in this way get rid of all the pollutions, sal, and the noxious influences. In the wall you have, and this is ancestral ritual. How do you understand? Because they have took away all kind of paintings which are not related with heavenly spirits. And then here as well, this is a byunggut. Is the ritual performed for sickness, okay, for illness, and the person under is had a health problem, and in this case they do several things, like also throwing adzuki, the beans, red beans, on the person, and through the affirmation of herbs around, so you purify the air, and then you also make the person lie on the floor, and you cover the person with a blanket, and then you do several actions, ritual actions around the corpse with a knife. So all these ritual actions are have a complex meanings, but it's not time to look one by one. Here she's inviting the 4 directions divinities to come in the ritual. This is a hereditary shaman. She's holding jijeon, paper money, and this is charismatic shamans and the past in too many pictures. And here you have a pskopompo. It's the shaman guiding the sword of the disease to the war. And here is the divinities that particular shaman worship in her personal spirit altar. And these 2 pictures are interesting for me because they represent Hogu. Hogu is a divinity that is covered with a red texture. In one article I wrote about the smallpox, you find many divinities not covered, but painted in red, with red color. And the red color was associated to smallpox, also as remedy. Also in Europe, Queen Elizabeth, when she got smallpox, she was she stayed in her room where they covered everything with red. so the red carpet, the red blanket, and etc. Charles V as well went through red therapy for the sickness of smallpox. But my question is, why Hogu is wearing this red? And there's not much. It's really difficult to find testimony or written text or also shamans what they say about. But it is said in the Muga that the Hogu has her face with many poisons that she preferred to appear to the in the ritual, covering her face with a red veil. And if you, I looked at the Manchu shaman's text that belongs to 17th century, and they also describe the smallpox deity in the, more or less in the same way. So there's a kind of, and the Manchu soldiers at the time were very aware that there was a smallpox epidemic in Korea. And many terms like mama entered, which is Manchu term, entered in China, and then through China entered in Korea, with with different meanings. Because in China, mama means also superior appellative used for the queen. Okay, in Manchuria, in Manchu antique language, it was used only for smallpox deities. In Korea, you have both. Mama is used for the royal female members, and also mama is also used for smallpox. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you so much for this very interesting lecture. I think this topic is quite new for many of our students, so it is absolutely a good opportunity for you, and maybe I think some of our students of a master degree can be new field of own research in the future. And we have about 10 minutes for eventual question, curiosity. Okay, first, Noemi.
Thank you so much for your lecture. It was very interesting. And my question is more of curiosity. I was thinking if, like in anthropology research, also the ritual performed for foreigners, if there are considered as proof.
Material.
Yes, as material for the research. And also I was thinking if shamans are available to perform these type of rituals also for foreigners, or if the language is a barrier for the shaman, this kind of question.
So 3 questions. Sorry. Should I answer now? Okay. You.
Can I?
Yeah.
So I would like to ask you, thank you for your lecture. Actually, if there's like any differences on how shaman are perceived in the rural and urban area of Korea. And also you mentioned about President Yoon's scandal. Why this was really huge scandal if many Koreans are used to shamanism, and also if there are any differences between male and female shamanism.
Well, a lot of. Okay, if now if I forget something, just tell me again the question. I think the shamans, well, we anthropology usually don't care so much what is original shaman's ritual and what is not. we are interested on the so-called Zhangpong shamans. And end of July, I will go to see a Richard of a German a lady who received the initiation, but she doesn't know Korean. She doesn't. So it will be interesting to see how she performed the rituals. And so for us, it's not a matter of which is A, B, C, and etc. So we don't. And then, yes, I think there's a very nice article, Superstar Shamans, changing more, and they talk about shamans who became very superstar, no, like a Kim Hwa, and they go around in the world and they perform also in the theater, etc. But once a shaman told me something that made me think a lot, and she said, that person was making a ritual and in front of a TV, and she was collecting the money, but she asked too much. She collect too much money, and so this is not real shamanism. So it made me think a lot, because usually what we say is that the shamans are very greedy, looking for money, because the ritual costs a lot. And they will say, it's not me, it's Degam, the general. But anyway, in one article where I talk about how much is their income, and I received a lot of criticism from the shamans, but at the end, they don't earn so much. And so because they have all this food, it's expensive, they have to pay the assistant and etc. So superstars go around, but it's very difficult, because each shaman would like to become ingamunaje, intangible treasure, and for one kind of ritual and tradition, etc. But it is really political matter, I would say. In some ritual, they would all the famous known scholars, and I was really confused. The rituals are held by them in their chatting and their political affairs, or by shamans, because shamans were doing the ritual, but then they were distracted and talking with these scholars, and so that is the reality. That is our daily life. What was your third question? I forgot. Okay. That is male. We always talk about female, mudang and paksu and etc. Because and this is one of the reasons that Koreans are very proud that Korean shamanism is predominantly women. And other characteristic is that they enter in altered state of consciousness, not through alcohol, not through mushrooms, not through other ingredients, except for music and dance, let's say, for charismatic. And so there are also, of course, male shamans. And what they say to me is that you have when you identify yourself with the female divinities, you have to behave in a certain way, use elegant language and move smoothly as women. And so to do this, to learn more and more, they say that they prefer also to wear the skirt in the sequences where there's no ritual going on, when they are relaxed during the pose. And also sometimes at home. Among Paksumudang I met, most people were homosexual, and but they have a very deep knowledge of beauty. Putting makeup, and in some way they were more feminine than shamans who are women. But it depends, because if a shaman has received as Momju, the divinity of personal divinity of gender, like a Chongapong, she will really behave as so. And one thing that they have to observe, they really cannot, otherwise they will be criticized a lot, is that the Paksumudang never should have a relationship affair with a male client. This, yes. That is very important.
My mom once, my voice is large enough. My mom once had a shindeila.
I see. Yeah.
So she went to Deep Mountain, and then she had training, but she never became Buddha. So my question is, it's always a matter of authenticity, of how they get certified. Like a minister, they go to divinity school, so they get some kind of certificate. For Buddha, these days, is there school that they go and learn all this? Did you ever go to school, Buddha school, and learn all that?
I went to Mudang school to observe, let's say, but I did not attend the school. But there are many cases that where they have a spiritual call, but they don't go through until the end, let's say. The certification is given by the spiritual mother when they succeed in netting good. In that case, then it is a shaman. All other people who have this spiritual call, but they don't, for many reasons, they don't go through the initiation ritual. Some of them, anyway, profess the shamanism, receiving the clients, but they call themselves posal. And so it is posad is a very, it is a term used to Buddhist nuns. But anyway, it says that they distinguish themselves from Mudang because they did not receive the Shinnerim, but they are anyway spiritual person. And within the Buddhist area, there's a lot of conflict. And this is also one of the real posad affiliated in Buddhism really dislike that the Mudang who failed call themselves a posad. So you have your mom. Yeah, I think.
Thank you so much for your lecture. It was really interesting. And I was wondering today, Korea society, how perceive mudangs, shaman in general, and if they are like protected by the government, like they try to protect this ritual or not, if they are like...
Yes, shaman, I think in the until 70, 80, and also maybe 90, shamans were very looked down. And when I started to do my field work, it was forbidden to perform the rituals. And remember that with the candles, very silently, faking to beat the drum, it was done like that. And looking always if police would come and etc. But time changed, and now there are many new shamans, young and but still anyway to say I'm a daughter of a Mudang is not really a nice way to present itself. But the government, how does if it protect or not, depends on historical period. I think there was a period in the when the government tried to recreate the national identity, and like after the colonialism, and in that case, the scholars were very immersed in the study of folklore also. And also in the 80s, maybe government had a contradictory attitude policies toward shamanism. On the one hand, they want modernization. Korea cannot have such a kind of pre-modern, primitive beliefs nowadays that we are running for Palpal Olympics and etc. And on the other hand, we have to keep our traditions. So it's a little bit complicated, yes. So.
질문 하나 더 있는데 나중에 따로 개인적으로.
커피 마시.
I want to say just I think she was the unique person who tried to organize the shaman ritual. I think
Sapienza.
on the occasion of International Conference of AXE. So I don't know how was the reaction of the people who did the shaman use the chaktu, right? Wow.
When we moved from we opened Oriental Studies in Vittorio Emanuele, Faculty of Oriental Studies. I thought it was a good idea to have a shamanist ritual. And I invited Kim Gun-hwa, who came with 8 people. And but this university was a little bit strange because the first floor or ground floor you have the market with a small madang, and so we had a ritual there, and Kim Gun-hwa was okay, and she gave a greeting to the Pope, and she was really proud to be in Rome. And they were walking in the street in Rome with hanbok, but the piri harabuji. Piri, the person who plays a piri, we say is like a person who plays a basso. They're a little bit always complicated. You have to handle very kindly. And he complained a lot. He said, I'm such an important person and I play piri in the market with a... But actually it was a success because people from the market, also gypsies, they came and, because of rumor. And we had a lot of problems to organize because of chaktu, the knives. And so they called the police. And the police came to check the knives if they are really cutting. And we had no special permission. And then for the rituals, I remember that it was easy to get the pig head, the head of pig, but it was very difficult to throw it away. Because we couldn't throw just at that time there was no differentiated way to humid and paper, plastic, and so with this head we went on top of the mountain. We entered into the forest and we just. So it was really good.
Ringraziamo di nuovo con un grande applauso. Thank you.
엄청 아주